What's going on, Magic Stronghold Nation? Good to be back again. This is Max Knowlan recording a video for MagicStronghold.com. This is the Judge's Corner. We're going to be talking about rules. We're going to be talking about policy, both subjects that are very near and dear to my heart, as I have been a certified judge for 7 years now, actively running tournaments that entire time. So I love knowing rules, I love knowing the policy, and bringing this to you is really exciting for me. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is one of the most common misconceptions that I hear about Magic tournament policy, and that is playing foils in your deck. I hear this a lot, people saying you can't do it at all, people saying all your lands can't be foil like I have mine here. Just anything to do with foils and not playing, usually wrong. The problem with foils is that they do bend, although Wizards has gotten better at making foils that don't bend as much. But they still have a tendency to do that, which can make them marked. However, that does not mean they are inherently marked. The only thing that matters when you're putting your deck together is if you or a judge can look at the deck and clearly distinguish one card from the other without looking at the picture. This does happen with foils if they bend, but if they're not bent, then it doesn't matter. Just like if a non-foil card is bent, it will matter. So if you've got a bunch of foil lands, if you want to play with foils, make sure you keep them in a compact box so that it reduces bend, and then put them in your deck, and everything should be fine. If there's any concern, make sure you talk to the head judge at the beginning of the tournament to make sure your cards are acceptable, but as long as there's no damage to the cards, there shouldn't be a problem. So don't leave your foils at home. Don't stop yourself from buying foils. Everything's gonna be fine. So we're gonna get into a couple questions that were submitted to me. First off is a general inquiry about Searing Blaze. And Searing Blaze is a bit of a complicated card because it has two targets. So the person had two questions, and the first one was, do I need a creature and a player to target? Obviously you probably have a player to target. And the answer is yes. Any card that specifies targeting anything, unless it's you may target, you have to have that legal target when you cast the spell. So that's one of the handicaps of a card like Searing Blaze. If your opponent doesn't have a creature, you cannot cast it, and hit him instead. Hit him as well, pardon me. However, his second question was, what if he casts Searing Blaze, targeting a creature and the player, and then the creature dies? If this happens, the player will still take 3 damage. Because the rules with targeting is that as long as one of the targets is legal as the spell resolves, it will resolve as much as it can. If no targets are left that are legal, the spell will get countered. So just to confirm, that's if your opponent doesn't have a creature, you can't hit them. If your opponent does have a creature and that creature dies, your opponent will still take 3 damage. Second question that got submitted to me was about planeswalkers and burn spells. The player asked me if he casts Kiora the Crashing Wave, which starts at 2 loyalty, does he have the opportunity to shock the Kiora before the player controlling the Kiora can activate it, putting it to 3 loyalty? And the answer is it's up to the player controlling the Kiora. In 99% of situations, I'll get to the oddities in a second. So in Magic, if you don't know, there's something called priority. And at any time players could do anything, someone has priority. And whoever's turn it is known as the active player. And the active player always has priority if the stack is empty, unless they're passing priority to their opponent. So basically, at the beginning of each step, the active player has priority to do things before his opponent. So a player casts Kiora in the main phase, Kiora resolves, and since there's no longer anything on the stack, that player gets priority back, which gives him the opportunity to activate planeswalkers. So in this example, if the opponent wanted to shock the Kiora, the Kiora player would have the opportunity to give it +1, putting it to 3 loyalty. However, if your Kiora resolves and you say go to combat before using it, then the opponent has a chance to shock it. The one exception would be if through some miracle you're able to cast Kiora on your opponent's turn, then they would have the opportunity to do anything. But of course, you can't activate Planeswalkers in your opponent's turn anyway, so it's kind of a moot point. So to summarize again, if you cast a Kiora, you have the opportunity to +1 it before your opponent has the opportunity to hit it with burn spells. Third question I got was about Worst Fears and Two-Headed Giant. The question is, of course, if you cast Worst Fears on one head, do you control both? And the answer is yes. This used to not be the case. It changed in Zendikar when Sorin Markov came out, and it just stuck with this. The reason for it is it would be really awkward to control one side of the team and not both, and Wizards wanted to avoid that. So, yes, it's very good to hit a giant, and yes, it will take the entire team. So those are the 3 questions I got that I wanted to go over. And you also see I have 2 more cards here. Got Painter's Servant and Humility. Now, Painter's Servant is popular in Legacy right now. It's in a combo deck. For those of you that don't know, playing Grindstone. Let me just get this up for you. So you can see Grindstone mills a player for 2. If those cards share a color, you do it again. Painter's Servant makes it so everything has the same color. So the player can say blue, everything's blue. Grindstone's an automatic kill. So this is an interaction that can actually come up in Legacy, because Painter's Servant's played a lot, and Humility does get some play too. Common logic would suggest that if you had a Humility in play, Painter's Servant's color modifying ability would no longer happen. Because it's an ability that the creature has, and the creature's losing all abilities, right? Well, it actually doesn't work that way. And it's really complex reason. There's something in Magic called the layers of characteristic defining abilities. And it's a list of sort of the way things apply to permanents. This is stuff like copy effects, changing control effects, changing power and toughness effects, stuff like that. And the higher it is on the layer order, so the lower the number, it will always happen regardless of things further down in the layers. So Painter's Servant, its color modifying ability, is on a higher layer than Humility's lose all abilities effect, which means that even though it's making that Painter's Servant lose that ability, since it is a higher layer, that ability's already taken effect, therefore it's not stopped. Very counterintuitive. The layers system is set up the way it is for a good reason, but there is the occasional time something like this happens, and it just does something very counterintuitive. The reason why I bring this up is it can happen in Legacy, and a lot of people won't even think about it. I didn't even think about it until a player actually asked me about it, and I kind of had to pause because I knew the answer, but it also didn't make sense from a gameplay standpoint. From a rules standpoint, though, it does make sense. It's not great, but it's the best system we've got. So those are my little rules things to go over. I'm going to be doing this once a week, so if you have any rules questions, policy questions, anything that you might want a judge to be able to answer for you, send us an email to judge@magicstronghold.com. Send us a Facebook message at facebook.com/magicstronghold, or send us post on the comments of the YouTube video. So that was fun for me. I hope it was fun for you. Thanks for coming out, guys. I will see you next time.